Fast Times at Ridgemont High, 20 Secrets They Tried to Hide. It was marketed as a carefree teen comedy. Sun-soaked malls, high school crushes, and the chaos of growing up in the early 80s. But Fast Times at Ridgemont High was never just harmless fun. Beneath the laughter lurked controversy, explicit scenes that outraged parents, casting choices that sparked debate, and real-life stories woven into the script that were far too raw for the era. Written by Cameron Crowe after secretly going undercover as a high school student, the film blurred the line between documentary and entertainment. Sean Penn's stoner antics became legendary, while other scenes pushed boundaries so far that censors nearly pulled the plug. What truths were hidden in those classrooms and locker-lined hallways? How did a teen comedy ignite scandal, censorship, and an entirely new wave of filmmaking? And what secrets still linger 4 decades later? Get ready to uncover 20 secrets they tried to hide about Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Shocking Secret 1. The undercover mission that started it. All the birth of Fast Times at Ridgemont High began with a dangerous gamble. Before there was a script, journalist Cameron Crowe went undercover inside a San Diego high school, posing as a student for an entire year. He attended classes, made friends, and slipped seamlessly into the world of teenagers, while secretly documenting their private lives. The stories he witnessed shocked him. Teens casually discussing drugs, grappling with sex, and navigating heartbreak. Teachers overwhelmed and disengaged. A teenage culture that was rawer and more complex than most adults dared imagine. His book, born from this undercover year, became the seed for the film. But when news of his deception spread, parents and teachers accused Crowe of betrayal. To some, he was a journalist exposing uncomfortable truths. To others, he was an intruder. Either way, the mission was complete. The truth of high school had been captured.
Seen the new Playboy?
Good?
Oh, there's tits.
All right.
The truth of high school had been captured, raw, unfiltered, and far more dangerous than anyone wanted to admit. Shocking Secret 2. The wild true stories that inspired the film. The outrageous scenes in Fast Times weren't just fiction. They were lifted from real life. Every stoner laugh, every moment of heartbreak, even the infamous pool scene had roots in stories Cameron Crowe encountered during his undercover year. Students he befriended became templates for characters. Their quirks exaggerated, but their struggles painfully authentic. Jeff Spicoli, the ultimate surfer burnout, wasn't a creation of Hollywood imagination. He was an amalgamation of several real teens Crowe met, who lived for waves, weed, and rebellion. Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, navigating the pressures of sex and identity, echoed the lives of real girls he observed in hushed cafeteria conversations. Years later, some of those former students recognized themselves on screen. For them, it wasn't funny. It was invasive. Their personal struggles had been transformed into cinematic spectacle. The audience may have laughed, but the real stories beneath those laughs carried a far heavier weight. The audience may have laughed, but for those who lived it, the spectacle cut too close to the bone. Shocking Secret 3. The Casting Room Battles. No one talks about casting. Fast Times at Ridgemont High was a war between Hollywood convention and raw authenticity. Studio executives wanted safe, bankable faces, but director Amy Heckerling pushed for actors who felt real, even if they were unpolished and unknown. Jennifer Jason Leigh nearly lost her role for being too serious. Phoebe Cates was pressured about the film's risque demands. Sean Penn stunned the room by auditioning fully in character as Jeff Spicoli, refusing to break his stoner act even when the cameras weren't rolling. Meanwhile, Nicolas Cage auditioned for a larger role, but was dismissed for looking too young, ending up buried in the background as an extra. Every casting decision became a battle, with executives fearing the film would flop without recognizable stars. But it was this gamble, this commitment to fresh, authentic voices, that ultimately gave the movie its timeless energy. Behind every laugh and heartbreak was a casting fight no one was meant to see.
Hey, make a right here. Here.
Behind every laugh and heartbreak was a casting war, one that nearly buried the film before it ever began. Shocking Secret 4. Sean Penn refused to break character. On set, Sean Penn vanished. In his place was Jeff Spicoli, and he refused to let anyone forget it. From the first day of filming, Penn demanded to be called Spicoli. He lived in the surfer drawl, wandered the set barefoot, and scrawled his character's name on his dressing room door. To the cast and crew, it was equal parts hilarious and exhausting. No one knew where Sean ended and Spicoli began. Was this genius method acting or a dangerous descent into obsession? Even off-set, Penn kept the illusion alive, forcing everyone around him into his stoner haze. The result was one of the most iconic performances in teen movie history. Spicoli's chaotic, freewheeling energy wasn't an act, it was lived. But Penn himself admitted years later that the blur between character and reality was so complete, he barely remembered the production at all.
Why don't you get a job, Spicoli?
What for?
You need money.
Spicoli wasn't just a role. It consumed Penn so fully that even he struggled to remember where the act ended. Shocking Secret 5. The pool scene. Hollywood tried to bury few moments in film history are as infamous as Phoebe Cates stepping from the pool in slow motion, framed by the car's haunting track moving in stereo. But behind the polished fantasy was chaos, debate, and controversy. Cates was hesitant about the nudity, caught between her own reservations and studio pressure to create a scene they believed would define the movie. Executives insisted it was essential, claiming it would sell the film. Yet critics and feminists later blasted it as exploitative, reducing Cates's performance to a single slow-motion fantasy. The fallout continued for years. Television airings cut the scene entirely, while home video releases made it one of the most replayed clips of the 80s. For some, it was a symbol of the male gaze at its peak. For others, it was a cultural milestone of teen cinema. What audiences saw as iconic, those on set remembered as a battle. A scene nearly buried, but forever immortalized.
Think about it. Cuba owned by a disorganized parliament over 4,000 miles away. Cubans were in a constant...
What audiences hailed as iconic was, for those behind the camera, a battle scar disguised as fantasy. Shocking Secret 6. The scandalous script, pages left unfilmed. What made it to screen was already controversial, but the original script was even bolder. Cameron Crowe's first drafts included scenes that dove deeper into teenage sex, drug use, and violence, material the studio deemed too dangerous. Several pages were cut before cameras rolled, not out of concern for story, but fear of backlash. One abandoned storyline involved a far darker exploration of abortion. Another pushed Spicoli's drug use into territory that risked glamorizing addiction. Even cafeteria conversations were rewritten, toning down the rawness of Crowe's real-life research. The studio wanted a teen movie that shocked, but not one that ignited boycotts. By trimming the sharpest edges, they hoped to protect the film from outrage. Yet those missing pages still linger, whispered about by insiders who saw the original drafts. If they had been filmed, Fast Times might have been banned instead of celebrated.
My brother's gonna kill us. He's gonna kill us. He's gonna kill you and he's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill us.
The sharpest edges were cut away, leaving behind a film that shocked, but never revealed just how dangerous it was meant to be. Shocking Secret 7, the soundtrack that cost a fortune. Behind the teenage chaos was a soundtrack that carried just as much power. The music of Fast Times at Ridgemont High became its heartbeat. But locking in those iconic tracks was a war of money and rights. Songs from the Go-Go's, Jackson Browne, and Don Henley gave the film its pulse, but securing them nearly broke the budget. The studio balked at the expense, claiming a teen comedy didn't need a premium soundtrack. Yet director Amy Heckerling and producer Art Linson fought fiercely, arguing the music wasn't background, it was a character. Without it, the film would lose its authenticity. In the end, deals were struck at great cost. Ironically, some tracks were swapped at the last minute, leaving dream choices on the cutting room floor. Decades later, fans still argue that the soundtrack, with its blend of new wave and classic rock, is as essential to Fast Times as Spicoli himself. It wasn't just music, it was the sound of a generation. It wasn't just a soundtrack, it was the sound of a generation, nearly lost to budget cuts and boardroom battles. Shocking Secret 8, famous faces who almost starred. The casting choices that defined Fast Times could have looked radically different. Before the final lineup, a parade of soon-to-be famous actors auditioned, or were rejected. Tom Hanks read for a role, but was passed over for being too wholesome. Ralph Macchio, later known as the Karate Kid, nearly joined the cast, but lost out to fresher faces. Even Matthew Broderick was considered, but executives feared he lacked the edge the movie demanded. The biggest surprise? A young Nicolas Cage desperately wanted a larger part, but was denied because of his age and inexperience. Instead, he lurked in the background, credited under his real name, Nicolas Coppola. If those stars had landed their roles, Fast Times might have become a different movie entirely. One less grounded, less authentic. Instead, by accident or design, the cast became a perfect storm of raw talent, many of whom launched legendary careers in its wake.
We're here.
By accident or design, the rejects made way for raw talent, transforming Fast Times into the launchpad of legends. Shocking Secret 9, studio executives who wanted it canceled. Not everyone in Hollywood believed in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. In fact, several studio executives openly lobbied to kill the film before it even finished production. Their reasoning? It was too raunchy, too raw, and too risky for mainstream audiences. They feared the frank depiction of teenage sex and drug use would spark national outrage, attracting boycotts from parents' groups and religious organizations. At one point, pressure became so intense that Amy Heckerling's position as director was questioned. Executives debated replacing her with someone who would tone down the story. But Heckerling refused to compromise. With the support of producers and Cameron Crowe, she pushed forward, daring the studio to pull the plug. When the film premiered, the initial backlash seemed to prove the executives right. But history would prove otherwise. The very qualities they feared made Fast Times unforgettable. The very qualities they tried to silence became the reason Fast Times could never be forgotten. Shocking Secret 10. The scene parents demanded be cut. Even before the film hit theaters, one particular scene sparked outrage among test audiences and parents' groups: the abortion storyline. Jennifer Jason Leigh's character quietly navigating an abortion was presented with startling honesty, especially for a teen film. Parents demanded the scene be removed, calling it immoral and dangerous for young viewers. The studio considered it, terrified of public backlash, but director Amy Heckerling fought fiercely to keep it in. To her, it wasn't exploitation, it was reality. The scene remained, but not without cost. The controversy fueled heated debates across America, with critics praising the film's bravery while others condemned it as irresponsible. That single moment transformed Fast Times from a goofy teen comedy into something far more serious. A cultural flashpoint that forced audiences to confront uncomfortable truths.
Hey, you're ripping my car.
Yeah.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
No problem at all. I think you know where the front office is.
You dick!
What parents wanted erased became the very moment that forced audiences to confront the brutal truth of teenage reality. Shocking secret. 11. Phoebe Cates' hidden fears about the role. Phoebe Cates was only 19 when she took on the role that would define her career. While audiences remember her poolside entrance as confident and magnetic, behind the scenes, she was racked with anxiety. The pressure to perform in a sexually charged role weighed heavily, especially knowing her performance would be immortalized on screen. Cates had built a reputation as a rising star with innocence and charm, and stepping into such a provocative part threatened to typecast her forever. She worried about how her family would react, how critics would judge her, and whether her future in Hollywood would vanish before it began. The irony? That very scene became one of the most iconic images of the 1980s. But for Cates, it wasn't glamour. It was vulnerability captured on film. Her fears were buried under the film's success, but privately, they never disappeared.
Wait a minute, there's no birthday party for me here. Oh, Mr. Han,
What's the reason for your truancy?
just couldn't make it on time.
What the world saw as glamour, Phoebe Cates lived as vulnerability, immortalized on film, but never escaped. Shocking Secret 12, the actor who walked away in disgust. Not every cast member was willing to embrace the raw honesty of Fast Times. One young actor, initially cast in a supporting role, quit the production after reading the full script. The blend of comedy and controversial subjects, teen pregnancy, abortion, drug use, was too much. He called the film irresponsible and feared being associated with it would ruin his career. Producers scrambled to replace him, quietly rewriting certain parts to accommodate the change. His departure rattled the crew, but also fueled the film's reputation as too dangerous for Hollywood. Ironically, while he walked away in fear, many of the actors who stayed went on to legendary careers. His name has faded into Hollywood obscurity, but his choice remains a haunting what-if. By stepping out, he avoided the controversy, but also the immortality of being part of one of cinema's most defining teen films.
Can I ask you something and you promise not to laugh?
Sure.
Okay. When a guy has an orgasm, how much comes out?
Like a quart or so. No, I'm just kidding. Just practice.
By walking away, he dodged the controversy, but also the immortality of a film that defined a generation. Shocking Secret 13, the dark inspiration behind Jennifer Jason Leigh's character. Jennifer Jason Leigh's portrayal of Stacey Hamilton was heartbreakingly real, but that realism came at a heavy price. Leigh revealed that her performance drew inspiration from her own adolescence, marked by confusion, vulnerability, and pressure to grow up too fast. The abortion subplot, in particular, hit uncomfortably close to home. While Leigh never confirmed personal parallels, insiders suggested that elements of Stacey's story mirrored experiences from Leigh's own circle of friends. This gave her performance a depth and fragility that critics praised, but it also blurred the line between art and reality. For audiences, Stacy was just a character. For Lee, she was something more, a reflection of a world too many teenagers faced in silence. Playing Stacy wasn't just acting, it was revisiting wounds that never fully healed. That hidden connection gave the performance its power and its haunting weight.
Why do you shamelessly waste my time like this?
I don't know.
For audiences, Stacy was just a character. But for Lee, she was a wound reopened, bleeding truth onto the screen. Shocking Secret 14. The real Spicoli that shocked teachers. Jeff Spicoli wasn't a work of pure imagination. He was real. During his undercover year, Cameron Crowe encountered several students who lived and breathed the Spicoli lifestyle. Carefree surfers obsessed with waves, weed, and rebellion. Teachers loathed them. Peers admired them. They were both comic relief and cautionary tale rolled into one. One particular student, often cited as the real Spicoli, became infamous among staff for his antics. He disrupted class, challenged authority, and made school a stage for his stoner philosophy. Crowe lifted entire moments directly from his behavior, immortalizing them in the script. When the movie premiered, teachers who had lived through the chaos were stunned. They recognized their classrooms, their students, and their frustrations staring back at them on screen. For them, Spicoli wasn't funny. He was a reminder of a very real battle against apathy, rebellion, and wasted potential.
I think they'd be better in bed. What do you mean better in bed? Either do it or you don't.
No. There are, like, variables that I might not be good at.
Like what variables?
Like, you know, giving blowjobs.
What's the big deal?
For audiences, Spicoli was comedy. But for those who lived it, he was a mirror of wasted potential and rebellion made flesh. Shocking Secret. 15. The MPAA war over the film's rating. Fast Times at Ridgemont High went to war with the MPAA. Originally, the board threatened the film with an X rating, citing explicit sex scenes, nudity, and the abortion storyline. An X rating in 1982 meant death. It would never play in mainstream theaters. The filmmakers fought back, trimming frames, adjusting dialogue, and negotiating line by line. Yet the MPAA refused to budge, demanding more cuts. Amy Heckerling accused them of hypocrisy, pointing out that graphic violence in other films passed easily, while honest depictions of teen sexuality were punished. After months of battles, Fast Times narrowly escaped with an R rating, but the scars remained. The censorship forced compromises, cutting moments the director believed essential. Still, even the edited version managed to scandalize audiences. The war with the MPAA became part of the film's legacy, proof that it had struck a nerve Hollywood wanted to silence.
You see that sign? No shirt, no shoes, no dice.
Right. Learn it. Know it. Live it.
The MPAA tried to silence it, but even cut down, Fast Times still bared truths Hollywood couldn't hide. Shocking Secret. 16. Lost footage. That may never resurface. Fans have long speculated about lost scenes from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Rumors swirl of deleted moments too explicit for release. Longer versions of intimate encounters, harsher depictions of teenage recklessness, and even alternate endings. Much of this footage was cut to appease censors, or simply to trim the runtime. But instead of archiving the reels, the studio quietly shelved or destroyed them. Insiders claim entire subplots are now gone forever. Bootleg whispers surface occasionally, with claims of private collectors owning unseen cuts. But no proof has emerged. For fans, the lost Fast Times remains a cinematic ghost story. A reminder that the film we know is only part of the story, and the darker version may be buried in a vault, never to see the light of day.
Congratulations to you. Things look kind of rough out there today.
Well, I'll tell you, Stu, I did battle some humongous waves. But, you know, just like I told the guy on ABC, danger is my business.
You know, a lot of people expect that maybe Mark Cutback Davis or Bob Jungle Death Gerard would take the honors this year.
Oh, those guys.
The mystery endures, leaving fans to wonder what cinematic secrets vanished behind closed doors. Shocking Secret 17. Nicolas Cage's secret cameo revealed. Before he was an Oscar-winning actor, Nicolas Cage, then Nicolas Coppola, was desperate for a break. He auditioned for a major role, but was rejected for being too young. Instead, he snagged a background cameo, uncredited at the time. If you blink, you'll miss him, but he's there. What stung most was watching friends like Sean Penn and Judge Reinhold land breakout parts while he lingered in obscurity. It was a defining moment in Cage's career, fueling his decision to distance himself from the Coppola name and carve out his own identity. For Cage, Fast Times wasn't a launchpad. It was a lesson in rejection. And yet, history has a sense of irony. The forgotten extra became a Hollywood legend, while many of his co-stars struggled to escape the shadow of their teenage roles.
Hey, how you doing, Brad?
Cooking. Daddy's home, boys. They shall serve no fries before their time.
From overlooked extra to Hollywood icon, Cage proved that early rejection can ignite a legendary rise. Shocking Secret 18. The teen movie blueprint. It accidentally created. No one expected Fast Times at Ridgemont High to become the blueprint for an entire genre. Yet its mix of humor, heartbreak, and raw teenage honesty set the stage for everything that followed, from Clueless to American Pie. Unlike sanitized teen comedies of the past, Fast Times didn't flinch. It showed awkward sex, drug use, and the confusion of growing up with unpolished truth. Studios at first feared it was too controversial, but when audiences connected, the floodgates opened. Suddenly, every studio wanted their own Fast Times. Teen comedies became a cultural force, with scripts mimicking its structure, tone, and soundtrack-driven style. What began as a risky experiment turned into a genre-defining revolution, forever changing how Hollywood told teenage stories.
Dad says you have to get up.
Leave me alone.
Dad says you're gonna be late again, you butthole.
Leave me alone.
Dad says you're gonna be late again, you booger. Dad, just throw snorkel at me.
What started as a daring gamble ended up rewriting the rules of teen cinema. Forever. Shocking Secret. 19. The cast members haunted by their roles. For some actors, Fast Times launched careers. For others, it became a cage. Jennifer Jason Leigh spent years trying to shed the image of vulnerable Stacy. Judge Reinhold grew frustrated as he was forever remembered as the awkward fast food worker. Even Sean Penn, despite his later success, was haunted by Spicoli's shadow, with audiences and journalists unable to separate him from the stoner surfer. The roles that made them icons also trapped them. Hollywood is unforgiving, and typecasting became a silent curse. Some embraced it, others resented it, but none escaped it completely. The irony? A film meant to portray the chaos of adolescence ended up mirroring it for its cast, a moment that defined them, whether they wanted it to or not. Fame, like high school, proved harder to graduate from than anyone expected.
I am so tired of dealing with incompetence. It says 100% guaranteed, you moron!
Mister, if you don't shut up, I'm gonna kick 100% of your ass!
Fame mirrored high school itself, unpredictable, defining, and impossible to fully escape. Shocking Secret. 20. How a box office flop became legendary when Fast Times at Ridgemont High first hit theaters, it wasn't the instant smash people remember. Reviews were mixed, ticket sales were modest, and some critics dismissed it as crude exploitation. For a time, it looked like the film would fade into obscurity. But slowly, something changed. Word of mouth spread, VHS rentals skyrocketed, and midnight screenings turned the film into a rite of passage. What critics called irresponsible, teens called authentic. What parents tried to censor, kids embraced as truth. Over decades, Fast Times transformed from a troubled teen comedy into a cultural monument. Today, it's not just remembered, it's studied, celebrated, and endlessly quoted. A reminder that sometimes the films Hollywood fears the most are the ones that last forever.
I hope this is important, you know, because I could be blowing a big deal.
Mike, I just want you to know that I'm pregnant.
From overlooked misfit to cultural icon, Fast Times proved that authenticity always outlives doubt. Fast Times wasn't simply a teen comedy. It was a raw portrait of adolescence, funny, messy, and unflinchingly real. But its secrets remind us that even a beloved classic can hide controversy just beneath the surface. Maybe that's why it still resonates, because growing up has never been clean, easy, or without consequence. If this uncovered truths about Fast Times you'd never heard, drop your favorite shocking secret in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden histories of the movies that defined us. Remember, high school isn't as innocent as it seems.